Okay, here we are working to replace the front fork springs on my 94 Vulcan 750. And what I've done so far may look like a lot, but it's really not. Start by putting the bike on the center stand, and then I have a motorcycle specific jack, but you could really use a regular car floor jack and a 2x4 or whatever you want to lift the front wheel off the ground and put the weight of the bike toward the rear. You need to have the weight of the bike or the front wheel suspended in the air so there's no weight on the forks. Next, you're going to pull these plastic caps off the where they attach to the triple tree, which is, excuse me, just a moment. Okay, so you're going to pull these clamps or these caps off, right? Mine just unscrewed. Some people talked online about prying them off. Mine just righty tighty lefty loosey. They unscrewed just normally. So there are some threads in there. If I can get it to focus, there we go. So you can see the threads, and they do screw down onto that. So don't break them. They are just plastic, and I've been told they're expensive if you break them. So just screw those off. The next thing you see is this piece right here. And what you have to do, and this is probably the hardest part of this entire job, is I'm going to sit on the bike because I think it's going to be easier to describe that way. What you need to do is push down on this brass piece or brass colored piece. Okay, you can use whatever you want to do that, a piece of a narrow diameter piece of pipe or whatever you can get in there, but I think the smaller the item you use the better because you need some room to work. But there is a snap ring that you'll see once you push down on the on that area, and you need to get that out. It's extremely helpful if you have a helper. I'm stubborn and like to do things by myself when possible. So what I did is I fashioned a clamp. So here I've got this sliding clamp here, and I've got it clamps underneath the bottom of my triple tree, and then this is just a piece of aluminum I use to bang on things, pressing down and holding this piece compressed. And once you get it in there, once you get that compressed, you can pull out this, and this snaps into a little ring in there and holds the spring in and prevents it from coming out. What I use to get this out is a narrow bladed flat-headed screwdriver. So I just tried to I came down from the top and pushed in behind the snap ring and pushed it down and got behind it, and then just kind of pried it up and out. And once I did that, it actually came relatively easily. So whether you have a helper hold that down or you use a clamp like I do, you need to get that snap ring out. And the next step is going to be to slowly release the clamp now and let this come out, and the spring ought to force its way up and out. And I need both hands to do that, so I'll show you what that looks like once I slowly release this clamp. Okay, so I removed the clamp, and this came right out. This is the brass piece that we're pushing down on, and it's got an O-ring on it, and then it's just a flat side right here. And so I'm removing this. I'm going to set it down on a clean old towel so it doesn't get filthy. And then the next thing we should have is a spacer coming out of here. And pull this out and try to do it one-handed. Okay, here's our stock spring spacer, and I'm see some oil on it, so hopefully there is oil in my tubes. That's what we got so far. Looking down in there. Alright. Looks like the spring is way down in there. So I'm going to need to get some sort of like clothes hanger to pull it out of there. I think there's a washer that you can kind of see sitting there. And then the spring below that. So I need something I can send down in there like a hook, basically. And so I'm gonna go get that and let you know when we get the spring pulled out. Okay, now I didn't mention at the beginning that if you were smart, you'd probably cover your gas tank with an old towel to help prevent scratches. I really ought to do that, but at the moment I'm not really gonna worry about it. I do have a paper towel here because when you start pulling this spring out, you're going to pull oil with it. It's a thicker oil, so if you just yank it out of there, a bunch of oil is gonna come leaking out with it. So I pulled it out where I could just get it out, and I shoved the screwdriver blade in it to prevent it from falling. And I'm gonna slowly let the oil drain down off the spring, and then keep pulling it out. I just made a little L-shaped hook with a old metal coat hanger and pulled the spring out. This is the washer that's in there, so you've got your brass piece that we pulled out, then you've got that retaining ring, this spacer tube, washer, and then spring, and then the fork oil, of course. So I'm going to wait for this oil to drain down off the spring, and I'm going to complete the same procedure on the other side. And then once I've got both springs out, I'm going to drain the fork oil, and I'm going to drain it right down here at the bottom of the forks, and I'll show you that once we're ready to do that. This I decided needed to be shown what we're doing. So this upper spring right here is my former stock fork spring. It had the coils on it are a constant diameter. They're wound at the same rate throughout the spring. Okay? Then I've got this metal spacer tube here, which runs up to the top of my triple tree. I'm installing aftermarket progressive springs. So what that means is these coils on this end are wound very, very tight, while these coils on this end are wound much looser, meaning that the force it takes to compress the spring is going to start out lesser and then get greater as the coils compressed. So in other words, what this will allow the bike to do is to smoothly absorb small ruts in the road so that you don't have a extremely stiff or rough ride. But if you get on the front brake hard, it's not going to just be very weak and soft and cause a lot of fork dive, which was what I was experiencing with this spring right here. So small bumps absorbed easily, but then if you do go over a very large bump or have to squeeze your front brake hard, you've got enough a stiff enough suspension that it gives you some feedback and doesn't just bottom out the forks. However, the progressive springs are longer than the stock springs. So what you need to do is either buy two 7-inch pieces of Schedule 40 1-inch PVC pipe. So the Schedule 40 is the thickness of the pipe. It's heavy duty, heavy grade. This is very stiff, good quality PVC. It's not going to break. Okay. These two pieces at Ace Hardware cut to length already, so I don't have to do anything to them. Was like $3. Okay, so very little cost, 1-inch diameter. Your other option is to cut your stock spacer tube to length. I think that's a much more harder option. I think the PVC pipe is more than capable of the job, and for most people that's going to be the way to go. What you can see though is that when you put the springs and the PVC pipe together, you equal the same length as the original spring and spacer. Some people, if you're a heavier guy, above 180, 200 pounds, you might want to make this spacer, instead of being 7 inches flat, make it 7 1/8 or 7 1/4, just to give it a little bit more preload. That's up to you based on your weight and how you ride. So what I've got is tin foil behind my fork, but blocking my brake rotor, tire, and wheel, because I'm getting ready to drain the fork oil out of this leg, and the tin foil prevents any spillage from contacting my tire, wheel, or brake rotor, which you definitely don't want oil on those because that'll be dangerous going down the road. So 10mm socket wrench. I'm just going to loosen this up. Whoops, don't do that. And I've got this little measuring cup, old dollar store measuring cup, that I'm going to measure out how much fork oil drains out, because I want to know how much was in there to start with. Should be around 320 milliliters. If I get approximately that much out, then I'm therefore confident that I don't have a leaky fork seal. And then so that's good. I hope to get about at least 300 to hopefully 320 milliliters out. So it is definitely dirty oil, but it is coming out, and I believe I'm going to get my 300 milliliters. That's 300 going in the oil drain pan, and whatever I'm about to catch right here will easily be 10 to 20 milliliters. So I am therefore confident that I don't have any leaky fork seals, and that I can put my springs back in and fill it up with fresh fork oil and be good to go. Got my hands sufficiently oily, but so what's going to happen is I'm going to let this drip for a little bit longer, but once the dripping slows down, I'm going to put a Ziploc sandwich or quart-size sandwich bag around the bottom of this fork to catch any remaining dripping oil. Okay. Catch any remaining dripping oil, and then I'm going to pump the forks up and down to pump out as much of the old oil as possible, so I can get as much fresh oil in there as I can. So on that note, I will show you how that goes in a moment. Pour 310 milliliters of fresh fork oil into each side of the fork. You want the level in each fork to be identical as much as possible. I'm using a measuring cup and a funnel. You can see the funnel. Cannot see the funnel. This is 15 weight Bel Ray synthetic fork oil. Don't let it get on your paint. Insert your springs. According to the instructions the progressive springs came with, it shouldn't matter which way you insert them. The spring will perform identically. I've seen different people say you're supposed to do different things. I'm going to install it with the tighter wound coils pointing upward, but according to the instructions it doesn't matter. But I would definitely do the same on both sides. Pick away and do it. So down the tube they go. I didn't film it, but I've got I added new fork oil, and then I used a tape measure to measure the distance from the top of the fork to where the oil was with the forks fully compressed. So using a shovel handle and an assistant, pulled the wheel up, fully compressed the wheel, stuck a tape measure in, and measured the level of the oil until it was at 8.5 inches plus or minus about 1/4 inch. So I did that for both forks, and now I just inserted the springs. Now I'm going to do the washers, my new PVC spacers, and then I'm going to put a light coating of multi-purpose grease on the O-ring around the brass piece and put that back in, compress it, add the snap ring, and we'll be back good to go.